Stephen was cleaning the school when he saw something in the corner of his eye. It was already very late at night, and normally nobody was inside the school anymore. Stephen walked back to the classroom and saw a student sleeping or unconscious inside the classroom. When trying to open the classroom, he noticed he could not get the door open. He tried screaming at the student, but it did not help. That is when he called the police. There was no other way. But before we start, smash the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our upcoming stories. Stephen had worked as a night cleaner for the school for about 5 years now, but he had never seen anything like this before. How could this student have just been left here? Somebody had to have seen her when they closed up the classroom. He wanted to ask the teacher who had last used this room, but they were of course not available at this hour. He had no other choice but to call the police. He knew what kind of trouble he could get the school in with this decision, but he felt like he had no other choice. If there was something wrong with this girl, and he had not taken action immediately, he would never be able to forgive himself. And seeing as she was not responding to him, there was a clear cause for concern here. He had been beating on the door window and screaming at the top of his lungs, but he had gotten no response from the girl. He wished that he could just kick in the door and get to her. But all of these doors had recently been fortified due to some issues around the country, and Stephen could fully understand that, but right now it was working against him. He could also not get in through the window. They were on the second floor at the moment, and getting to the window would mean risking his own life. The police had told him that they would be there in 20 minutes, as the school was pretty remote. Stephen had no idea if this girl could wait that long. Stephen does not want to wait that long, so he thinks of another way to get to the girl. Then he realizes that the door might be fortified, but that all doors have the same weak spot, the hinges. So Stephen grabs the strongest thing he can find in his cleaning cart and starts beating on the hinges. It takes him a lot of hits, but eventually he manages to dislodge the pin holding the hinge together, and within a minute, he manages to break down the door. Now he rushes to the girl as fast as he can. He picks her off the table and is ready to start shaking her to see if she will wake up, but then he sees her face. Stephen immediately freezes. This can't be happening. He immediately realizes that he should have never called the police, but they were already on there. They could not come here and see this. He quickly called the police to report that it was a false alarm, and they did not need to come here. Stephen had told the police that the girl might be dead, and even if that was a false report, they would still need to take statements from him. The way that Stephen was begging them not to come also raised a lot of questions for the officers. Was Stephen trying to hide something? Maybe cover something up? They had to see for themselves. Realizing that he was not going to be able to cancel the police, Stephen started to panic. Under no circumstances could he let the police this still unconscious young lady. He considered getting her to his car and driving off, but the police were already too close and would probably intercept him before he got there. The only idea that quickly popped into his head was to keep the police out of the school for as long as possible so that he could look for a place to hide himself and the girl. And so he ran downstairs to the front entrance as quickly as possible and locked the main entrance. He also started to barricade it with everything he could find until he started hearing the sirens in the distance. Having made sure that the police could not get in easily, Sturdivant ran back upstairs to get the girl. He needed to hide her somewhere, but with the time stress weighing heavy on his mind, he looked out of the window of the classroom and saw police cars driving up the terrain. Officers quickly got out of their cars and ran to the front door, only to find it locked and barricaded. They looked for other ways to get in and started shouting for somebody to open the door. Stephen was not going to respond to them, but he also knew that it was only a matter of time before they got in. He already heard the police kicking in a window downstairs. They were clearly taking this very seriously. Stephen quickly grabbed the girl, put her over his shoulder, and started walking out of the classroom. The only place he could think of to hide was the small teacher's room on this floor. It connected to the other teacher's room with a small set of stairs. Maybe he could use that to escape or something, but he knew that would be very difficult with the police still on high alert. They knew that he was probably still in the building. The door was barricaded for a reason, of course. Maybe he could call a friend to come pick him up, but his first priority was hiding. Stephen, his breath ragged and heavy, navigated through the dimly lit corridors of the teacher's lounge with the unconscious girl hoisted over his shoulder. His eyes darted around, searching desperately for a safe place to hide. Amidst the cluttered space, he stumbled upon a small, almost invisible door, partially obscured by an old filing cabinet. It was a storage room, seldom used, filled with forgotten school supplies and dusty furniture. With a glimmer of hope, Stephen pushed the door open, feeling a wave of relief as the room's secluded darkness enveloped them. The room was cramped and stuffy, but it offered a temporary refuge from the chaos outside. Observing her still form, he couldn't help but feel a surge of protectiveness, his mind racing with questions about her identity and how she ended up in such a state. In the quiet of the storage room, Stephen leaned against a stack of old textbooks, his mind whirling. Why was she here so late? And most importantly, what should he do next? His heart pounded against his chest, a mix of fear and concern. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on him. He knew he couldn't just leave her here. Knowing time was of the essence, Stephen began rummaging through the room, looking for anything that could be useful. He found a first aid kit buried under a pile of old sports equipment and placed it beside the girl, just in case. Next, he grabbed a couple of water bottles and some snack bars from an old teacher's survival kit. Though the resources were meager, they gave Stephen a small sense of readiness for whatever lay ahead. As Stephen scanned the room for an alternative escape route, his eyes caught a glimpse of something promising, an old ventilation shaft, partially hidden behind a rusty filing cabinet. A flicker of hope ignited in his chest. Perhaps it could lead them out of the school, away from the prying eyes of the police. With renewed vigor, he began clearing the area around the shaft, determined to explore this unexpected opportunity. Huddled in the corner of the dim room, Stephen pulled out his cell phone, his fingers trembling slightly as he dialed. The ringtone echoed ominously in the silence before it was answered. "Hey, it's me," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I'm in trouble at the school. I need your help." He glanced nervously at the girl, praying his call hadn't attracted any unwanted attention. Through the phone, Stephen's friend listened intently, his concern palpable even through the hushed tones. "There's a girl," Stephen continued. "She's unconscious, and I've hidden her in a storage room. The police are already on their way." His voice was steady, but his words were laced with urgency. "I need to get her out of here." On the other end of the line, there was a moment of tense silence before his friend responded. Stephen quickly outlined a plan for his friend to discreetly arrive at the school and wait in a secluded spot. After ending the call, Stephen sat back against the wall, his eyes fixed on the girl's serene face. The room felt suffocatingly small as he waited, each minute stretching on interminably. Every sound from outside made him jump, fearing it might be the police closing in. He checked his phone repeatedly, hoping for a message from his friend, confirming his arrival. Finally, the phone buzzed with a message, "I'm here at the back entrance." A wave of relief washed over Stephen. With one last look around the cramped room that had been their temporary sanctuary, he steeled himself for the next phase of their precarious journey. Outside, the night air was filled with the sound of police radios and methodical footsteps. Stephen could hear them moving closer, their voices a low murmur through the walls. They were conducting a thorough search, room by room, inch by inch. His heart raced. Every footstep felt like it was coming straight toward their hideout. Crouched by the door, Stephen strained his ears, trying to make sense of the snippets of radio chatter filtering through. Clear in Sector 2, crackled a voice, followed by another, moving to the east wing. They were systematic and professional, leaving no stone unturned. Stephen's mind raced, calculating their proximity, estimating how much time he had left before they reached the teacher's lounge. Stephen could almost feel the presence of the police officers as they methodically swept through the school. He glanced at the unconscious girl, a sense of urgency overwhelming him. He needed to act fast, to move before the police converged on their location. It was a delicate balance of timing and luck, and Stephen knew it. As the search intensified, so did Stephen's fear. He weighed his options, each more risky than the last. The tension was palpable. He knew that the moment of truth was approaching fast, and he had to be ready to act. Suddenly, the voices grew louder, and the sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway. Stephen's breath caught in his throat as he realized they were just outside the lounge. Carefully, he lifted the girl, her weight a stark reminder of their reality. They needed to move now. With the girl in his arms, Stephen crept through the dimly lit corridors, his mind racing with memories of the school's layout. He remembered an old, rarely used exit at the back of the building, obscured by overgrown shrubbery and years of neglect. Each step was calculated, avoiding the creaky floorboards and well-lit areas. As they navigated the maze of hallways, Stephen's thoughts drifted back to his early days working at the school. He recalled the old sections, rarely visited, often forgotten. These memories now guided him, leading them through a labyrinth of deserted classrooms and dusty storage areas. Stephen moved with utmost caution, his every step measured and silent. The girl's steady breathing was the only sound in the eerie quiet. He was painfully aware of the risk they were taking with every moment they remained inside the school. Each turn, each doorway, brought them closer to potential discovery, or to their elusive escape. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the back exit came into view. It was a rusted, metal door, partially hidden behind old equipment and overgrown vines. Stephen's heart surged with a mix of relief and anxiety. This door represented more than just a physical exit. It was a gateway to safety, a slender chance to escape the nightmare that had unfolded this night. Stephen set the girl down gently, his hands trembling as he reached for the door's handle. With a deep breath, he pushed against the door, feeling the rusted hinges give way with a protesting groan. They were on the threshold, teetering between the peril inside and the unknown dangers of the night outside. With a final glance back into the darkness of the school, Stephen stepped through the door, venturing into the uncertain freedom that awaited them. Emerging into the cool night air, Steven felt a rush of relief. The world outside was still and quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos they had left behind. He took a moment to savor the fresh air, feeling it fill his lungs and calm his racing heart. With renewed hope, Steven stepped into the darkness, ready to leave the nightmarish school behind. In the distance, tucked away in the shadows, Steven saw the faint outline of a car. Steven quickened his pace, his eyes darting around to ensure they weren't being followed. As he approached the car, the headlights flickered on, a silent signal that it was time to leave. With careful haste, Steven opened the car door and gently laid the girl in the back seat. Steven climbed into the passenger seat, and without a moment's delay, they pulled away from the school. Every second was crucial now. They needed to put as much distance between themselves and the school as possible. No sooner had they started moving than the piercing sound of sirens filled the air. The police had noticed their escape. Steven's friend pressed the accelerator, the car's engine roaring to life as they sped away into the night. The rearview mirror reflected the flashing lights of the police cars giving chase, a stark reminder that they were not yet out of danger. Navigating through the dark, Steven guided his friend along less traveled back roads. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating a winding path of safety away from the main roads. Each turn took Steven and his friend deeper into the countryside, farther from the police in hot pursuit. Steven kept glancing back at the flashing lights that grew ever closer, his heart pounding with fear and adrenaline. The car roared through the darkened back roads, his friend gripping the wheel with determination, navigating sharp turns and sudden detours with skill. Every second felt like a gamble, the gap between freedom and capture narrowing with each passing moment. In the backseat, the unconscious girl stirred faintly, her breathing steady but shallow. Steven reached out, adjusting her position carefully. His concern for her well-being mingled with the tension of their escape. Left here, then straight, Steven instructed, guiding his friend into less traveled paths, hoping their knowledge of the area could outmatch the persistence of the police. The wail of sirens echoed through the night, a relentless reminder of the peril chasing them. Their frantic flight came to an abrupt end as they skidded to a halt before a police roadblock. Trapped, Steven's friend gripped the wheel tightly, his calm resolve giving way to silent despair. Officers surrounded the car, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Steven, his hands trembling, took a deep breath and began explaining, his voice steady despite the chaos. He recounted finding the girl unresponsive at the school, the panic that drove his decision to flee, and his desperate attempt to protect her. One officer peered into the backseat, his expression shifting from stern professionalism to surprise. "Wait, I know her. She's the school owner's daughter," he said, disbelief coloring his tone. The revelation hung heavy in the air, shifting the dynamic. Steven confessed he'd recognized her too, but panicked at the thought of the potential fallout for the school and his own role in the situation. His words, laden with regret, painted a picture of fear and desperation rather than calculated wrongdoing. Paramedics arrived, their efficiency breaking the tense silence. They quickly assessed the girl, confirming she was suffering from acute alcohol poisoning, a serious condition that required immediate care. Steven watched, guilt weighing on him as they worked to stabilize her. One officer revealed that this wasn't the first time she'd been found in such a state, adding complexity to the night's events. The weight of the girl's struggles, her vulnerability, and the chaos of the situation pressed down on Steven. The arrival of the girl's father, the school owner, brought a mix of gratitude and tension. His face betrayed both relief and embarrassment as he approached the scene. Thanking Steven for trying to help his daughter, he assured the officers the matter would be handled privately. His authoritative demeanor masked the deep concern of a parent as he took charge of the situation, speaking quietly with the paramedics and officers. As the night settled into an uneasy calm, Steven stood silently, the gravity of his actions and the turmoil of the chase washing over him. The girl was safe, her fate now in the hands of professionals and her father. Though the consequences of the night remained uncertain, Steven felt a fragile sense of closure as he watched her being taken away, hopeful that his efforts, however flawed, had helped in some way. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another unbelievable tale like this one.